Richard Turner.
Richard Turner.
And looking with both eyes, I couldn't see how he did it.
Richard Turner, he does things that nobody else in the world can do with cards. Nobody.
I don't call myself blind because I see things in ways that other people can't see.
He's in the Hall of Fame at the Magic Castle.
Don't let anyone tell you there's anything you can't do. Welcome aboard the Reuben E. Lee. I'm Richard Turner.
I guess the first thing I'm wondering about is, can you tell us what happens when a shark meets a riverboat jerk?
Oh, that one. I remember that, yes. This is probably about 82, 83. And I was the entertainment aboard this riverboat. And it was set up in different ways. I'd have my main show in the lounge, and then I was able to walk around and go to the particular tables and entertain people. And it was the end of my night, and at the end of the night, I always had a lobster with a prime rib, and they had the best creamed horseradish ever. And I was looking forward to that. I was done with my performing, and there was this guy that kept going, "Hey, come here. I always win. When I play in Las Vegas, I never lose. I always win." And I'd hear this guy yelling and screaming, trying to get me to go over, going, "What kind of jerk is that?"
No kidding.
I know. And then finally I go up to him, I say, "How may I help you?" He says, "When I play in Las Vegas, I never lose. I always win." And I thought to myself, yeah, right. Nobody always wins. Even if you had a professional mechanic at the table, you don't always win. He said, "Sit down, we're gonna play some cards." I said, "Sir, you don't want to play cards with me. The conditions I can control the game under are, you can shuffle and cut the deck, you can choose the game, you can choose the number of players, and you can tell me which hand you want me to have win, and as sure as you're sitting there, I can make it happen."
So what happened next? Was this guy stupid enough to play against the shark?
He literally grabbed the deck out of my hand and said, "Sit down."
Ooh.
So I shuffled the cards up, I let him shuffle, and I said, "What do you want to play?" He said, "7-card stud, high spade in the hole." And I thought, that's my favorite game to control. I said, "How many players do you want?" He said, "The 4 of us, of course." He had 2 friends with him, and a man and a woman. And then I said, "Who's going to be the winner?" He says, "I am, of course." I said, "Where are you seated?" He said, "Right here, number 1. I said, "Okay." So I dealt it up. I was getting ready to deal. All of a sudden, he slapped my hand to the table. He said, "Hold it. We're not playing this for nothing." He made us each pull out a $100 bill and laid it on the table. And I said, "Okay." So I pulled out some of my own. I always kept a stack of hundreds in my pocket just for little emergencies like this, or in my boot. So I'm dealing around, I'm dealing 4 players, 7 stud, and all of a sudden, at the showdown, he had an ace high straight with high spade in the hole.
Don't tell me he thought he just got that hand.
Oh, yeah. He grabbed, not only did he do that, he grabbed the money, stuffed it in his pocket, and I'm cleaning up the table, and I'm going, "Hey, buddy, I just told you can shuffle and cut.
Yeah.
Choose the number of players, choose the game, choose the winning position, and I'd make it happen." You know what he said? He said, "What are you talking about? I'm the one that said 4 players. I'm the one that chose the game. I'm the one that shuffled. I'm the one that told you I was going to win." And
Sounds like he's begging to get bit.
Oh, gosh.
Did you bite?
I thought to myself, now I understand where you're coming from. I said, "Okay." I said, "Get your money back out. Let's keep playing." So I'm sitting there playing hand after hand, and every time, the odd thing was, he made his 2 friends put up money every time.
Oh, so there were other people around.
Yeah, there was 4 of us all together.
Oh.
Him and I think, I don't know if it either was a brother and a sister, relative, or he was their boss.
Right.
But no matter how you look at it, they obviously had money to burn.
They were all about to witness him getting bit.
Yes, and they smiled at me, and they were almost embarrassed at the way he was acting, but they put up money every time. And so I'm going hand after hand, and I'm building a bigger and bigger and bigger stack of money because he kept wanting to get his money back. And so I finally thought, okay, I think he's had enough. I stood up from the table. I said, "Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure doing business with you." And I had a big stack of $100 bills.
Did you finally get to have your dinner?
Oh, yeah. But
He interrupted your dinner, right?
That's exactly what it did.
Right.
But the cool thing was, the manager, a guy named Joe, he was standing behind me watching this, and he was just grinning from ear to ear. He said, I'm the manager and I have to play nice. You don't. He said, that was so much fun watching you whip that guy. He's been a jerk to everybody in this place. So I went up.
There's a movie, Tombstone, that has a character like that where he does the same, he's like a jerk to everybody, and then Wyatt Earp comes and smacks him in the face and gets him out of there.
You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you ever seen Tombstone?
Oh, great movie.
Oh yeah, great scene. Yeah. Doc Holliday.
Doc Holliday. Oh yeah, that was a great movie. Yeah. Anyway, so I went up and I had my lobster, my creamed horseradish, prime rib, and then I come down and one of the servers, her name was Kim, she said, oh, there's a guy in the sternware that wants to talk to you. And so I went back over there and it was the same guy. He said, we're going to play some more. And he said, this time I'm going to do all the shuffling. I'm going to make sure every card comes off the top, and I'm going to make sure that's the case.
Was this a one-on-one?
No, it's still the four of us.
Oh, okay.
He still had his two friends.
What were these other people thinking about putting up money?
I have no idea.
The shark and that guy.
I have no idea. I thought, like I said, either they were very rich or they were very stupid. That's all.
Do you think maybe they just wanted the experience? Like
they were subservient in some way to him. Is what I think.
See.
You know, either he was their boss, their older brother, or money just meant nothing to him, and they knew he was a jerk, and they just dealt with it.
Right.
That's the only thing I can think of because it didn't make any sense.
Right.
But they never gave it hesitation when he keep putting up money. So anyway, we sit down. And he grabbed the deck.
Yeah.
He shuffled it 14 times. I have this habit of listening to how many times people shuffle the cards.
Right.
And you know what the cool thing was? I was pulling the wool over his eyes.
Right.
He never knew that I couldn't see the cards because I already knew I was going to whip. So when I was looking at my cards, I was only pretending that I knew that I was looking at them because I already knew I was going to whip him.
Right.
So I got him on two fronts. So he did not know he was being beat by somebody who couldn't see that well. We played 4 more rounds, and I got another about $1,200 or something, whatever it was. I said, thank you very much again. I was getting ready to leave, and the server, Kim, came up to me and she said, thank you for taking care of that guy. She said, he was such a jerk. He's been a jerk to everybody, just like the manager said. And she said, he asked me who you really are. And who was that strange guy? Yeah. And she told him, he's one of the best card sharks in the country. And she told him, you were a fool to have played cards with him. And she said, and she also said, and you were whipped by a guy that's almost blind. How'd that make you feel? And so I'm sure it didn't make him feel very good. So anyway, I go out. My chauffeur was a guy named Jim Blowers, and I went out to wait for him, got off the boat, and back then, it was just shadows upon shadows.
Right.
And I'm sitting in my normal waiting spot for him to come up, and I was sensing something. I could feel something going.
The shark senses were tingling. The shark gills were tingling.
The shark tails were tingling, exactly. And so all of a sudden, I start to turn around. All of a sudden, this guy comes around, grabs me in a bear hug from behind, and he hisses in my ear, give me my money, you blind cheater, I'm going to smash in your face.
Oh, he was filled with rage after she made fun of him.
And I knew exactly who he was. I recognized his voice instantly, and I thought, another big mistake. You don't grab somebody in a bear hug. As soon as he did that, I instantly, first I smashed my head back, and I think I heard his nose go. And then I dropped down into a deep horse stance, made it where I could break his arms loose. So I'm going like this. So I'm going down, raising his arms up, breaking his grip. At that instant, I smashed my fist into his groin. And back then I wore cowboy boots. And at the same time, I just really slid my boot down his shin, and I just drilled my heel into his foot.
Yeah.
And that caused him to back up.
Yeah.
And he backed up, and he's definitely cursing at me big time. And so they said, I'm going to kill you. And he came running after me. And I caught him with a step across side kick.
There's a 5-board step across side kick.
And because of his angle of approach, I caught him right in the lower ribs. And
wait, what's a step across side kick?
Oh, that's just a side kick, but you get more body into it because you literally step across it so you can throw your whole body into it.
Got it.
Anyway, so it's
and you nailed him right in the hip.
no, in the lower ribs,
Lower
right
ribs.
here, right
Ooh.
here, right in those lower
And you had
ribs.
a boot.
Yeah, I had a boot. Yeah, I got with the heel,
Yeah.
and that caused his aggression. He basically, I heard him wander away, whimpering, and whimpering and cursing, and I actually thought at that moment, I wonder if this is a fantasy I always had. I wonder if he was one of those guys that beat me up as a kid, and I got a little satisfaction.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, this makes me think about another altercation you had with a interloper who came after the shark. Tell us about that.
I was doing my show. This was at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth, world's largest honky tonk. And I was the entertainment there for 4.5 years, and partly in the
that's in Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas, huh?
Billy Bob's.
Billy Bob's,
sounds
Texas.
like a fun place.
Yeah, it was
fun name, fun place.
Yeah, and he was a great guy, Billy Bob himself, big guy. Anyway, funny thing was, I was doing my show, and I had kind of like a mini castle set up, you know.
Right.
And I had a big 9-foot poker table, regular poker table that people would sit around, and I'd entertain people, would have seats and stand behind. Anyway, I was just at my 3-card monte at the bend point, which is the climax of the routine.
Yeah.
And right then, this guy comes up and goes, I want to cut high card with you right now. And I'm going, just a minute, guy? He goes, no, I want to cut with you high card right now. And
There's a lot of aggressive guys.
Aggressive was an understatement.
Yeah.
He was another.
You just attract them like flies.
Yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the climax, so I'm real quickly trying to finish off that. And then I turned and I said, how can I help you, sir? He says, I want to cut high card with you right now. And I said, okay. I said, you put $1,000 on the table and I'll cut you high card, and I'll even let you shuffle and cut before we cut.
Wait a second. This is such a random thing. It's almost, I would imagine he had something up his sleeve, something that he's going to try to trick the shark with.
He definitely had something up his sleeve. But right before that happened, this guy named Risky, he owned Risky's Barbecue.
What a great name, Risky.
I know.
Billy Bob,
and
Risky.
Risky's Barbecue.
Great names.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
And he came up and whispered in my ear, he said, Richard, we've been playing poker all night, and this guy keeps winning. And we kept telling him, you might beat us, but you can't beat Richard Turner down at the club.
Yeah.
He said, so do a favor for me. Do a job on this arrogant son of a gun.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, so now I knew what was going on.
Sidekicks ready.
So I said, put $1,000 on the table. He threw $1,000.
Yeah.
And then he said, match it. And of course, I always had between $2,000 to $10,000 in cash on me between my boot and at all times, just for these little emergencies.
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're honest, you know.
I took them out of these pockets. Anyway, so I capped it with $1,000. He was a little shocked that instantly I pulled out $1,000 myself, and then he goes, but we're using my deck of cards. He pulled out a brand new sealed deck of bicycles.
I don't think he understands that it doesn't matter what deck he uses, the shark's gonna bite if the shark wants to bite.
If the shark wants to bite. So I took the cellophane off. Unfortunately for him, he gave me complete control. So I took I took the cellophane off, broke the seal, took out the jokers, touched the ace of spades, and I said, do you mind if we let this lady shuffle first? And the one I just did the 3-card monte for. And he said, sure. So I passed the deck over to her. She shuffled. And then I said, would you like to cut first? Or would you like me to cut first? He told me to cut first. And so I just cut a card and left it on the table. I said, now your turn. You shuffle those cards and cut them any way you want and cut a card. He cut a card and he turned up the 9 of diamonds. And everybody's waiting for me to turn my card up. Slowly flipped over the ace of spades.
What a coincidence.
Everybody gasped. It was like a puncture tire, the air blowing out of there. Whoa! And all of a sudden, I was getting ready. I was grabbing for my $2,000. He grabbed his $1,000 and took it.
Whoa!
And he goes, I know. He says, I didn't think we were playing.
How did you handle that?
He said, I didn't think we were playing for real money. And so, well, how I handled it is,
I bet he would have said something different if he got the high card.
Yeah, no doubt. He would have said, "I told you I was win," and then of course Risky would have been a little disappointed in me that not doing a job on him, but took his money, and so I decided, okay. I said in front of everybody, because he would tell me, he said, "I've known Billy Bob since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. I used to kick his butt."
I used to know Billy Bob when he was just still called Billy.
Yeah, and I said, "You don't kick his butt anymore, little boy," because Billy Bob is like 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", about 270 pounds. He played pro basketball and pro football.
So just your typical freak of nature.
He was a big boy, and I said, "You don't kick his butt anymore, little guy," because he was no bigger than I was. We cut, he took the money, and so I decided, okay, this guy needs to be taught a lesson. I said, "So you're telling me," he's right here, that's why I'm looking over here.
Yeah.
I said, "So you're welching in front of all these people. You came up to me and you challenged me to cut high card, and now after we do it, we both put money on the table, you grab your money and take it back." I said, "So you're welching in front of all these people." I said, "You're gonna really look big to your friends now." And of course, it was actually the best part of my show. The right audience member doing the stupidest thing, whatever it happens to be, can make a show 1,000 times more effective.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you've been there, done that. And so all of a sudden, they're just loving this as I just whipped this guy who came up challenging.
And what a awesome move by you, because he's a prideful guy and you went right for the pride. Like you're a welcher?
Yeah, exactly.
And that got, I bet that got under his collar.
They were
Hot
laughing.
under the
First
collar.
they were laughing at the whole situation. Then they were jeering at him.
Yeah.
They started jeering at him.
Yeah.
So he, embarrassed, slithers away. And about 2 minutes later, he came back.
Yep.
He had his money. He took his money with him. Came back and slapped 10 bills in my hand. And left. Guess what? He returned 10 $1 bills. The cheat got cheated. He still cheated me at the end. So he walked away. Not only was he a coward, a welcher, he was also a cheater. He cheated the cheater.
Triple threat, triple
combo. Threat. Anyway, but the best part for me, it just made for a really entertaining show. And people have talked about that particular night for a long time.
Oh yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Now, typically, sharks like guppies, but I hear you actually like barflies as well. What's that about?
Well, there's always people, especially there, in all the years, because I would be an intimate performer, and there were people that would come in, and I just had to play cards with them, and I had a way of playing poker without chips. I call it 0+. And I won't explain that now, but it's a way of playing poker where the management doesn't know you're actually playing for money. And so this one guy, he was always toasted, he had money, and for about 2 years or so, we would play, and he would always say, "Bring your little table over here and I'm gonna whip your butt, you cheater."
So much aggression at these card tables.
I know it. And so I would sit down and we would sit there and play, and he insisted on doing all the shuffling and all the dealing, and he thought that was okay. I couldn't do business. What I did is I combined a double discard and a brush, and I won't explain what that is because it's too technical.
Right.
But basically what it means is instead of the 5 cards, we're playing 5-card draw, that I had to build my hand. I actually was literally working with like 8 cards, 7 to 8 cards in every hand to build a hand from. Because basically, in a nutshell, what I'd do is my good cards, I'd throw them aside and say I want 3, and I'd say it was a pair of aces and a 10, and I'd keep the bad cards, and I'd draw. And if I say I drew another ace or a king, and then when I'd pick up the cards, I'd throw them in the pot, and I'd switch the cards for the ones that I just threw in the deadwood. And he was so toasted. Every now and then, he would just wonder if something just happened there, because I always could sense that, but he never said anything. We played over and over, hand after hand after hand, for year after year, year after year, for a couple of years. Anyway, I don't know how much money I won from him, but that was a typical barfly that wanted to sit there and challenge the cheat as the cheat.
And made the same mistake they all make.
Yeah.
Got bit.
He got bit.
Now, from all these card players that you've come across, obviously there's going to be people with different styles or ways of strategies for the game from all over the country, all over the world. Specifically, though, I'm wondering, how do gamblers from Laramie, Wyoming compare with card players from Texas?
Yeah, that's a fun story and a little scary story.
I had a feeling
This
would be a
guy
good
came
one.
up to me, says, "I've heard about you." This is how he talked. "I've heard about you. You gamblers in Texas, you're all a bunch of sissies." He said, "You
Them's
don't."
fighting words.
Them's fighting words. He
Again,
said,
more aggression.
He said, "You don't know the first thing about handling the pace boards." He said, "You and I are going to play a little heads-up poker, and I'm going to whoop you." and I thought, okay. And the thing is, when he said, "You don't know the first thing about handling pace boards," and so I didn't know if he was challenging me as Richard Turner, a gambler, or Richard Turner as a card mechanic. So I didn't know. But when he said handling the pace boards, that made me think, well, maybe he's talking about my skills as a mechanic. Because as a player, I was above average, but I was not a great player. I was a little bit better than average player. I was a pretty good player.
And just as a side question, the term pace boards,
That's another
you would
term?
usually use that if you have some extra knowledge than the typical player, right? The typical player
Yes.
doesn't say pace boards.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he had some.
He had some knowledge.
Yeah.
Pace boards is a slang term for pace boards.
Right.
Packs of cards. The
Because
pace
it's
boards.
a piece of paper and then two outside all glued together, and they call them
Pace boards.
Yeah.
Yep. So we sat down to play, and I borrowed. I said, "Is $300 a round good enough for you?" He said, "That'd be fine." Wasn't a whole lot.
Pocket change.
Pocket change. And so I borrowed some chips from our folk casino there, and we sat down there and we started playing. And what we did is I had my card box, and what I would do is we each took $300 in 3 ones. We call them Texas ones, $100 bills. I'd put 300 in, he'd put 300. We just hit it in the box so the management didn't know we were gambling.
Right.
And then we'd sit there and play. And within 5 minutes, I had his $300. I'd take out his 300, leave mine in there, and he'd put another 300 in. I'd push over another stack of $300 in chips. And because I couldn't see the colors very well, I always kept the same. I always use the same color. I'd say, well, they're just all $10 bills,
Right.
and so on. Because I didn't like people to know the vision thing, so that was one of my ways to get around it. So anyway, we're doing it again, 3 times, 4 times. I think it was 5 times in a row. So he's down about $1,500.
Yeah.
Okay, not bad for I was maybe 55, 60 minutes playing. And then finally, he then startled me. He pulled a gun, literally slapped me across the cheeks with it, poked me in the chest with it, and said, "We're going to keep dealing. We're going to deal everything real pretty like."
Wow.
So
It's like something straight out of Deadwood or something. Tombstone.
So Mr. Laramie just raised the stakes. The family jewels were now on the line, literally the firing line. So now I'm a little scared. So I'm dealing everything perfectly normal and back and forth, and probably for maybe 30 minutes or so. And I wanted to get away from this guy. And what he did, he held that gun between the legs, like I said, under the table, between my legs.
I hope he didn't have an itchy trigger finger.
No, so does my kids.
Yeah, hello.
Future kids.
Yeah.
And the money pretty much stayed even because I was no longer doing business, and I don't know what kind of business he could do or what he was thinking if he was some kind of card handler, because it never showed up in any of his actions. So finally, I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of this situation? How am I going to get away from this crazy nut? And every time I'd go to move the table, I said, "Excuse me, don't you move." He would threaten me, "Don't you move, or you're going to be singing like a girl."
You gotta put this scene in a movie.
I know, it is a scene in a movie.
Makes me want to go to casinos and stuff. But I'm like, wait, do
I
really want to go?
You're talking about the casinos in Deadwood.
Yeah.
Back with Doc Holliday. That was more the type of experience. So anyway, this bartender comes up, and it was a female bartender. I said, I won't use her name. I said, "Put your arms around me and around my arm and start walking," because I knew he wasn't going to do anything with a woman putting her arms around me. And we walked away. So it was just another exciting night in the world's biggest honky tonk.
And that was Monday.
That was a Monday. That was a good start of the day, because it was a very quiet day. It started off very quiet, and that's why there was no one in there at that time. And that's why it all came down as it did. It was just one of those quiet days before everything started.
Now, I've heard this name from you before. Can you tell everybody about a Frank Becerra?
Frank Becerra and his
Becerra.
lovely wife Lola. I met them in 1985, and she was one of these beautiful ladies, always covered in diamonds. I mean, I'm talking about 1, 2 carat diamond earrings and everything else. She just looked like.
In her case, diamonds really were her best friend.
Yeah, and other things. But she was very elegant.
Right.
Like Crystal Carrington, I think, of one of some old TV shows, what kind she reminded me of. But Frank was an interesting guy. He was in a wheelchair. He was a paraplegic. And so we bonded instantly.
Yeah.
And a friend named Grandmaster Roy Kerban introduced us because he was also a card mechanic.
Right.
And
Wait. He was
He was-
paraplegic, meaning he couldn't use any of his limbs?
his feet.
Oh, just his feet.
Just his legs.
Okay, got
not
it.
quad,
Got it.
paraplegic.
You're like, that's real impressive.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah,
card
he
mechanic
was
in that
dealing with his
situation.
ears.
Yeah, his nose, his tongue,
nose,
his teeth,
tongue.
his ears.
Yeah, so he was a paraplegic, and his
Paraplegic.
hands were just fine, and so he jetted around on a wheelchair, and
Wow.
he
Oh, I
drove.
bet he had strong arms.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
I went driving with him. We went places all over together for a
Right.
number of years. We bonded because we both had lost something
Right,
crucial.
right.
He was around late 50s. He was in a car accident, and he lost his legs.
Wow.
But that didn't deter him, so he became a card shark. Then he became a land developer and a big builder, and he built stuff all over the world. But he actually got his start as a hustler in South Africa,
Wow.
Sun City, the same place that gangster Mr. Diamond tried to get me to play in. I'm sure you've remember we talking about that in the past.
That's a story for another
That's another
episode.
story for another day. Yeah. So that was Frank Becerra. He was a card mechanic, a wheeling card deck. When I say wheeling,
Wheeler
card,
and dealer.
yeah, literally.
Wheeling and dealing.
Really, he
Yeah.
wheel and deal.
That's probably where that term came from.
Yeah,
from him,
exactly.
wheeling and dealing. Okay, so the shark needed a new shark tank, and I heard the shark bit the builder big time. Tell us how you bit the builder.
The builder. Yep.
Seems like you wouldn't want to bite the guy who's building a house or whatever for you. He might do some sleight of building there and have everything fall down.
That's a good thought.
Yeah.
I never thought of at the time, but what happened was Frank introduced me to a guy named Charles O'Banion.
Okay.
He built all the high-end homes in this area. My performing was humming right along at Billy Bob's, and that was also the fad for the rich and famous. You know,
Right.
it was the fad entertainment. All these celebrities, or mainly wealthy oil men and
Right.
and cattlemen and ranchers and stuff. I would be in their entertainment at their real fancy places, and
Right.
they paid really nicely. So I wanted to build a new home, and I actually designed it all myself. It was 4,200 square foot home, and at that time we were talking about 1985, so it was
Right.
going to be about $350,000
Right.
home in Texas. He introduced me to Charles. Charles agreed to build it at cost plus 10%.
I have a feeling we're getting close to the part where you actually bit.
Not yet, but close.
Yeah.
And what costs plus 10% means,
Yeah.
say it costs $350,000. So that means 35,000 of that would have been his cost. 10%.
Like a commission.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
commission. Yeah. So if it was a $350,000, 35,000 of that
Right.
was his 10% of
Yeah.
the cost of the building
Got it.
of the home. So I'm at his home, and I'm doing a little show for him and his family in his dining room. I'm at the last thing. I was in with my 3-card money, as you've seen 1,000 times. And I'm right at the point where I bend the card. And I decided to have a little fun with him. I said, Charles, and
We're at the biting part now.
we're getting ready to bite.
Perfect.
Now,
The
this
chum is in the
chum
water.
is in the water, and the teeth are chomping. So
The sharks are circling.
I decided to have a little fun. Usually in my show, I openly bend it and say, here's the queen with the bend. I openly let them see it.
Right.
In this case, I just kind of
They have no idea that, I mean, to think that you wouldn't know there's a bend in your car. They're like, this guy doesn't know.
Yeah.
We got him.
But yeah, in this case,
Sucker born every day.
Yeah, sucker born every day.
Sucker's
And-
Progress.
Yeah, good show.
Good book.
Good book.
You told me about that book.
1938.
Oh, that was 1938?
That's when it came out.
Oh, yeah, fascinating. I'm still reading it.
Yeah. As I flip over the card, I put a bend in it, and I said, okay, Charles, here's the card. See the queen. I had 2 2s and a queen, flipped it over, and then I flipped it back over, and I pretended I didn't see the bend in it. And I said,
Classic move.
I said, what do you say we have a little fun? And, and of course, I do this just as part of my show anyway. And I was just having fun.
Yeah.
I said, we should have a little fun. I said, if you can find the queen, and I would sit there and show it very openly.
Nice and slow.
And I'd say, if you can keep your eye on the queen, I'll add $10,000 to the cost. Otherwise, you build the house for me at $10,000, a flat fee of $10,000. And he thought, well, this is an unusual business proposition.
Why not?
He never had something like this
Yeah.
come across, but he was intrigued. And he said, okay, I'll go along with that.
I'll bite.
And so I said, are you okay, you ready? And so he said, okay. I was very open. I never touched that queen.
Yeah.
I showed the twos. No, I didn't show the twos. I just picked up the 2 cards and I crossed my hands like that.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to do anything tricky. You turn over the one you think is the queen. And he turned it over.
He went for the bend.
He went for the bend. And he was in total shock. He goes, what? He said, I never took my eye off that card. Not even for a second. He said it, Bob, 5 or 6 times. I never took my eye off that card. How could that have happened? And the cool thing was, like I said, I was doing that as just having fun.
Yeah.
But the cool thing for me is he honored the bet, which saved me like $25,000 on the price of building that home.
Wow.
Cool.
Just took one little bend
One little
card
bite,
and a good old-fashioned, wholesome game of 3-card Monte.
And $25,000 saved in the bank.
That's all my questions for this episode.
Yep, that's
an excellent story to go out on.
Yeah.
Shark getting $25K back in his pocket.
And that $25K added up to $25,000.
I like it.
I like it.
I like it a lot. All right.
Signing off.
Signing off. We'll see everybody next episode.
Shark Tale.
Next Shark Tale.
Well, when a scam has been played out, the last guy you're going to meet sometimes is the first guy that you meet, except in a different role. This time I'm playing the role of the fixer, the patch, the cooler, the guy who smooths things out, make sure the cops aren't called. We hope you had fun here tonight, and maybe even got a little something out of the show, so that the next time someone comes along and offers you a deal that's too good to be true, you'll have the last laugh. And just remember, Richard,
if you're playing for money and you see someone shuffle with one hand, run.
Next time you give your car keys to valet with your house key attached, you might want to check the glove compartment and see if your address is on your insurance card.
And for those of you that use the valet parking here tonight at the theater, we don't have valet parking here at the theater.
So remember that crime does not pay unless you're very good at it.
Cheaters never prosper. Yeah, right. Well, it's been fun playing for you all, but if you'll excuse us, we have to go to work.